Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, live and direct from BZ Sierra Nevada Airy in occupied California, doing the job the American media maggots won't, featuring right thinking from a left brain, working without a net and under an assassination order. Here is the bloviating Zeppelin.
I have come here to chew bubble gum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubble.
Well. It is 6 days. 6 days before Christmas. 6 days before Christmas. Are you ready? Are you prepared? Is BZ prepared? You want the honest answer? The honest answer is not exactly. I still have a few more things that I probably could or should do. I've got most of my shopping done. There are a couple of little things here and there. One of the biggest questions that I've had is, or maybe I should say it's a problem, is I've been trying diligently to get into the Christmas spirit. And all I know is, comparatively speaking, as a little kid, and maybe this is the wrong perspective, Christmas just isn't the same for me. And I wish I could tell you that it just doesn't have the enthusiasm, the zip, the verb that it used to do when I was a kid, but you know what? Maybe that's how stuff goes when you're an adult. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Right here, live and direct on the SHR Media Network. You got a belly up to the bar. We have kept your seat, and it's great to see you back. Flackbait is going to be your bartender tonight. He pours with the best of them. And the lava lamp is, in fact, lighted. To my left, your right. However, at this point, it appears that I'm not going to read the rest of it because we have a particular individual who is calling in. Maybe I will do the rest of it because he can hear it anyway. We don't water our drinks, just like we don't water our conversation, politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all here at the saloon. Nothing is sacred. The speech is free, but the booze is not. All we ask is that you flush the damn toilet, jiggle the handle. There's a reason for that sign being there. And don't forget to tip your waitress. Now, tonight, as we sometimes customarily or not customarily have on Tuesday nights, we do have, in fact, the benefit of the illustrious Dan Butcher of High Plains Media fame here tonight. And I have a couple of very specific questions for Dan, who is, in fact, here. And then also what Dan doesn't know is this. Well, he knows one thing. He knows that I'm going to ask him tonight about what he thinks were some of the most significant and important, and then perhaps least important stories or events of 2017, because, of course, we're wrapping up the year. What Dan does... Shh, don't tell anyone. What Dan doesn't know is that I'm going to be reading an article by Kurt Schlichter that just came out, I think, either yesterday or day before. And it's entitled Some Real Talk for Conservatives About 2018. And it's kind of interesting. It's actually very interesting to hear what it is that that Kurt Schlichter has to say about some of the things that I wasn't exactly aware that he was thinking these things. Well, the positive aspect of that is that I want to hear Dan's thoughts on this, because Kurt went a little bit in a different direction than I thought he would. Well, is that good or is it bad? Well, folks, We're gonna find out. And of course, we've got just a whole host of other stories to talk about tonight. Now, with all this blah blah blah, Rentune, okay, Dan, I hope you're sitting down and ready for this. The number one guy in all of news, as opposed to what Sean says, it's Dan Butcher of High Plains Media fame. Dan, hello.
Hey, BZ, how you doing tonight, my friend?
I am doing great. The first question, I think, right off the bat is, do you have your Christmas shopping done?
No. I have 5 kids. What do you think?
All right,
no.
Cool. You're a man of few words. I like that. Very succinct. Outstanding. Like to see that. Well, I have to be honest, I don't either. I have very few people to shop for these days. The wifely wife. All right, I've got Mrs. BZ taken care of. So if she happens to be listening, dear, yes, you are taken care of with one little teeny-weeny little thing that I'm not going to tell you about. Other than that, yeah, I'm pretty much done. And the other thing is, Dan, do you send out Christmas cards?
No.
Again, a man of few damn words.
I tell you, I quit sending Christmas cards. You know, when Mrs. Butcher and I got married many years ago, you know, we used to send out the Christmas cards,
yeah.
and you know, and then when we started having kids, we started sending out the family newsletter every year, updating everything that was going on, but. You know, it's just gotten to where, and I'll tell you what has replaced the Christmas cards, and that's social media.
Yep.
Because everybody that you sent Christmas cards and stuff to, you now keep in contact. You usually sent Christmas cards because you were sending them to people that you had not seen in a long time, did not see regularly.
Very true.
That's all changed with Facebook and Twitter and what have you, because you know now everybody sees everything that you post on social media, every little thing that you post about your kids and what have you. And so that's kind of, you know, and it started with email. You know, email kind of started replacing that, and especially now with Facebook, it's just, you know, it's like sending everybody a Christmas card 4 or 5 times a day now. In reality.
Yeah, and it's just, it's a real pain, and then you start, as you get older, there we go, BZ with the old stuff again. As you get older, people sort of drop away, and you don't really see them anymore, and then the breaking point is this: when one Christmas season comes around and you don't get a Christmas card from X, fill in the blank, then some people go, all right, now I don't have to send a Christmas card back to that person because they've dropped me off their list. How cynical is that? How sad is that, Dan Butcher?
Well, I'll tell you, it used to seem like that, but I find just the opposite. I have found that many people that I had lost contact with, old friends, family members, what have you, you know, now they're back in our lives, and we talk with them more often, and you know, and then interacting with them on social media or what have you, and then I find out you tend to talk to them a little more on the phone as well. You know?
That's
because
true.
They get sick. It is. They get sick of. They get sick of, you know, I wouldn't say sick, but they get more interested, saying, hey, I want to actually hear your voice other than seeing what you're typing in 500 characters or less or what have you know.
Yeah.
But, you know, I want to talk to you in person. But I have reconnected with so many different people over the years, you know, primarily through Facebook and different things. And so this time of year especially, it seems that even people that you didn't regularly communicate with on social media, all of a sudden you start communicating more because it's that time of year and you're exchanging different things and stuff like that. And that's just the way things have changed over the years. You know, the internet is such a wonderful tool. It can be the devil as well. But you know, the advantages and the joys and the good stuff of the internet greatly outweigh the bad things. And that's one of the things that has really been with the internet, with Facebook and other social media platforms is, all these long distances. It's shortened the distances between people. Even though you may, you have family members that may, let's face it, may live around the world. It's like they're in your back. It's like they're in your living room with you when you're on Facebook or something like that.
Listen, if the fat guy right here can figure out how to get on Facebook and figure out how to get the hell on Twitter, any damn person can do it. Anyone at all.
Exactly.
Now, before we go any further, for some of the people, because there are some new folks in chat tonight, and I think they may have transmigrated over from another radio show that we listen to, the Tammy Jackson Show. Tell folks who you are, who is Dan Butcher, and what does Dan Butcher run, and where can Dan Butcher be found? Who are you, sir?
Oh, what do I not run these days? It seems like we have such a wide variety of stuff that we do. Of course, our main website is High Plains Pundit, which is highplainspundit.com. High Plains Pundit is a regional and national website based here in Texas, in the Texas Panhandle. And we also, as part of High Plains Pundit, we do have High Plains Talk Radio. We have High Plains Pundit TV. We also own approximately 20-plus other local and regional websites that are a part of our news network. And different things. So we do have a wide footprint in our little neck of the internet world as far as news and information. We're a small media company, but growing. The High Plains Pundit has itself has about 15.5 million page views each month. So we're quite proud of that and how it's grown over the years. So that's what we do here. You can hear me about every other Tuesday on BZ's show. And for folks that are listening,
I love the hell out of talking to you
tonight. Yeah, but here's the thing. BZ and I have an absolute blast. We go on the air, and I know I mentioned this, but for the new folks that are listening, when I come on BZ's show, I have no idea what in the hell BZ wants to talk about, what he's going to ask me until I come on the air, and that's the way I do just about any radio show or interview. I like to come on. I like to be surprised. I like the spontaneity of the conversation. And so, folks, you don't have any idea what you're going to hear tonight on BZ's show.
That is very true. One thing I want to do is my mother always told me to recognize excellence when you see it. Number one, thanks, Dan Butcher, for being here. Number two, we got a whole bunch of people over in the chat room right now. Myself, obviously, Jersey Joe. We've got HP Pundit. Wonder who that is. We've got George Rapp. We've got the Traveling Cynic. We've got Guest 6209, who is infinitely better, although usually it goes the other way around. He is infinitely better than Guest 6210, who was a shadow of his former self. We've got Guest 2916 and one viewer. By the way, to the one viewer who has not been unmasked, I want to tell you the policy here at the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show is to not unmask you. We are not the federal government. We do not go out of our way to unmask you. You can remain masked in chat as much as possible. I just heard that Colleen Grimson is here. Colleen, I haven't seen or heard of you in a long time. It is great to see Colleen Grimson. There's so much stuff to talk about these days, and I think I want to start with this. I found, and I got to get him on the show to talk about, if nothing else, his books, but I've been reading a lot of Kurt Schlichter. Now, I think some folks in the Hugh Hewitt radio show chat room, the Tribbles, had told me quite some time ago, you got to be reading Kurt Schlichter. Kurt Schlichter writes some great stuff. And, life happens and a lot of other things happen. And then I started reading Kurt Schlichter. And what I started to do was to print out more Kurt Schlichter articles because I wanted to read them on the air. Well, tonight for everyone, I have an article that Kurt wrote. It was either yesterday or earlier today. I think it was yesterday. And it's called, he usually publishes things at townhall.com. And this is where I found the story. Jill. Okay, if Jill is here in chat, welcome to Jill. Good to see you. If you guys want to listen, you're listening on shrmedia.com, which is where you're in chat. If you want to watch old Zepp, you can go to the SHR Media Facebook page, or you can go to YouTube and go to the SHR Media YouTube channel, because we are live on both places right now. And as a matter of fact, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Jill, who is in chat, who's a member of the Hugh Hewitt Tribble Force, it was she specifically who turned me on to Kurt Schlichter, and I believe it was she specifically who said, you got to read him. Well, like I said, there's this article that I want to read for you, and it's going to go some different places, and I want your input, Dan. I'm going to read a couple of paragraphs, and then I would like to see what it is that you think about this, because in my way of looking at this, Kurt went a slightly different direction. Just like people say that Trump is a pragmatist, I think that Kurt went really pragmatic here in his article. And the article is called Some Real Talk for Conservatives About 2018. By the way, folks, there's somebody else calling in on Skype right now, and the situation is that we can only take one call at a time. So Dan's going to be on for quite some time. Dan has got the world covered, so I can't take two calls at once. I can't take callers because the system is not wired in that fashion. So if you're hoping to get on, I'm sorry to disappoint you in that fashion. So I guess we're going to have to listen to a strange blink blink for a while. In any event, okay, thanks. Okay, the caller just is still blinking. Okay. In any event, the story is called Some Real Talk for Conservatives About 2018. Just the title got me interested in itself. And Dan, it goes like this. We conservatives need to get our heads right about the midterms, or liberals will end up guzzling patriot tears, and their gloating will be flat out intolerable. We are not doomed in 2018. I mean, it's not like tax reform or pulling out of the Paris climate scam, which have already killed millions of people, including me and you. But if we fail to get on course for victory, then we're going to see Nancy Pelosi and the Gropocrats back in charge and trying to take America and make America into California. And he says, trust me, you do not want to live in the United States of California. Stop. I'm in the United Snakes of California. I live here, and I hate this place. He continues, so the first step towards victory is some real talk about us normals. You know, conservatives who are more concerned with our country than with muttering about principles and trying to sell cruise cabins. We need to talk about how we've screwed up and how we need to change what we're doing wrong. We got lazy after we vanquished Felonia Milhouse von Pantsuit. Okay, sorry, I didn't say I wouldn't laugh in the middle of it. I'm going to say that again. Felonia Milhouse von Pantsuit and installed what has turned out to be the most conservative president since St. Ronald. We had the House and we had the Senate, so we relaxed. Sure, we've gotten some great things done, but every step has been a battle thanks to the enraged Dems, their lying media pals, and that cheesy bunch of never-Trump weasels who are motivated by rage at how we dissed them and their conservative incorporated cronies. The enemy is creating a sense of permanent chaos, and they intend to present themselves as a return to normality. Vote for us liberals and everything goes back to normal, they'll lie. They'll actually amp up the insanity with impeachment shenanigans and obstruction, and they'll probably bumble their way into provoking a short and hilarious civil war. Stop. Dan, any thoughts?
He's exactly right. And here is what you've seen is, I live here in the state of Texas, and we've kind of seen some of exactly what he's talking about. We're here in Texas. We're just the opposite of what you're facing in California. We control the state. The Republicans control the governor's mansion, control the state legislature. We control all the statewide elected offices. The majority of representatives in the House from the state of Texas are Republican. Both of our state senators are Republicans, et cetera, et cetera. But unfortunately, they've gotten fat and lazy a little bit, and so they kind of, are not watching and paying attention. And for example, and I use this a lot, and that is where let's look at what has happened with all the sexual assault allegations and how the Democrats have stolen that narrative from the Republicans. The Democrats, even though they have more offenders on their side of the aisle, they've taken the moral high ground with that somehow, and they are in the way they are presenting themselves. They're making the Republicans look like, on top of where they were making the Republicans look like a bunch of racists and et cetera, bigots and what have you. Now they're making the Republicans look like they hate women. They've gone back to the war on women mantra with all of this, even though you've had the Republicans are the ones that have stepped up and said, hey, we're stepping down from office, we're doing this and this and this. Well, now you have the Democrats openly calling for Stuart Smalley, who represents the and of course I'm using his one of his characters from Saturday Night Live, but calling for the certain senator from Minnesota to stay in office, to withdraw his resignation because they're winning the war. Look at also how look at all of the accusers on Roy Moore. Where are they at now? They have all completely disappeared from the face of the earth now that election's over. And so you're going to see more and more of this, and they keep doing this. And the Republicans just say, well, and also you look and see how the Republicans can't get on the same page on a lot of stuff. And I know here later you wanted to talk about the accomplishments, some of the least talked about news stories, and I'll talk about that pertaining to Donald Trump. But the Republicans, a prime example tonight was on the tax bill. So the Republicans are making a big deal out of this. Hey, we're going to get this passed. So the House passes it. And then the Democrats are just sitting there waiting to pounce. And as soon as it heads to the Senate, the Democrats say, hey, guess what, you stupid Republicans? There's 3 parts in this thing that don't conform to Senate rules, so now you're going to have to drop those 3 parts out of it. And once the Senate votes and amends this, then you guys over the House are going to have to vote on it again because you're a bunch of dummies and didn't get it right to begin with. Oh, and by the way, every Democrat in the House voted against that. You also had 12 Republicans that voted against it. So the Republicans have an issue with getting on the same page. And I will tell you that this vote is not a foregone conclusion in the Senate tonight because you have a 1-vote margin of error in this. So one Republican changes his mind, and then you get to that 50-50 split where Pence will have to come in and be the deciding vote. If you have 2 Republicans decide to go to the left on this, then they're in trouble big time. And it turns into what should have been a major legislative victory for the president and Republicans turns into a fiasco and a major defeat for them. So stay tuned, and we may have something to talk about that tonight before your show's over with, BZ.
Well, here's the funny thing. You know what the hell is going on right now. That poor bastard, Mike Pence, has probably got one of those spiked, Bill's Urban Grotto dog collars on right now because he's chained to D.C. from now on because he may well end up being the tiebreaker on a lot of things that are coming out of the Senate these days. So Mike Pence, BZ to Mike Pence, dear sir, you're going to be staying the hell in D.C. for the foreseeable future and perhaps all of 2018. Don't expect to take a vacation at all. Question. He intimates a civil war. Funny thing is, Kurt Schlichter has also written 2 books that I've purchased about essentially a civil war and the split between the rest of the United States, the East Coast, the West Coast, and basically the middle of the U.S. is blue, the middle of the United States is red, the coastal areas are blue, and everything is falling apart. That's another reason that I want to get Kurt Schlichter on the show. But Are we actually, he kind of, he dances around this a little bit, though he's written 2 books about it. Are we, is this something that people actually need to think about, some kind of a civil war? Are we that disparate in our philosophies these days?
Not a physical civil war. I don't think you're going to see something like that. But a political and philosophical civil war, we're definitely seeing that now. BZ, and you have seen certain parts of the country. Let's kind of narrow this down, because I'm going to pick on your home state of California.
Oh, listen, that's the easiest victim in the world to pick on.
Because let's look where the Democrats control, you can call them a Democrat, you can call them a progressive, you can call them a liberal. They're all one and the same now. Okay, but look at where they control California. They don't control the whole state. There still are some good common sense people in the state of California, even though the progressives / Democrats / liberals give them all a bad name. But there's still some good conservatives that do control, and Republicans that control large parts of the state, just like they do in Oregon, just like they were of course our good friend Tammy Jackson lives, where in the state of New York, there's vast parts of the states that are controlled by Republicans and conservatives in general. But what controls everything in the state of California are the big urban population centers, whether it be Sacramento, whether it be Los Angeles, San Fran Freak Show. Take your pick. In New York, it's New York City that controls everything in the state there.
Hey, can I interrupt?
In Oregon, it's Portland that controls everything. And so it's these population centers. So there's lots of good conservatives still out there, but the large population centers, the Democrats have completely taken this over. And how have they taken it over? By giving away free stuff. And look at what they've done to fuck all that up, BZ. Take your pick.
Oh, yeah.
You want Baltimore? Hey, looky there. Do you want Detroit? Hey, take a looky there. Detroit is the ultimate progressive utopia, and look how screwed up it is.
Hey, can I interrupt here for just a second? We got about 2 more minutes before we go to the bottom of the hour break, and I want to go over this real quick before we lose it in chat, because some of the folks were nice enough in chat to give me this information. I want to read it. If you were wondering who the 12 people were, the 12 Republicans were who decided that they were going to go vote no on this tax bill, it was all from high-tax blue states. Representative Dan Donovan, New York. Representative John Faso, New York. Rodney, Freitlinghausen, New Jersey. Darrell Issa, Republican Darrell Issa from California. Darrell, you fucktard. Walter Jones, North Carolina. Peter King, New York. Leonard Lance, New Jersey. Frank Lobiondo, I believe, from New Jersey. Dana Rohrbacher, California. Thanks, dude. Christopher Smith, New Jersey. Elise Stefanik from New York. And Lee Zeldin, all from New York. And just like they pointed out in chat, and also you did too, all from blue. Gimme more free shit states. How bizarre is that? Well, we're going to continue with this article. It's down to the bottom of the hour. We're going to take a little bit of a break, and we're going to come back, and I'm going to continue reading this article by Kurt Schlichter. It goes some very interesting places. The article is called Some Real Talk for Conservatives About 2018. And I beseech thee, I don't know where I got that. I beseech thee, don't go anywhere. Come right back after this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show, also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press Radio, and YouTube through the SHR Media page for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians,
You got a business. That you didn't build that.
a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying calf was stupid.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on SHRmedia.com.
The bloviating Zeppelin. He's big-footed enough radio shows to last a lifetime, courtesy of Sean, Clint, Ken, and Jersey Joe. Now it's time for him to waddle on his own 2 feet via the glorious SHR Media. Gird thy loins for the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Coming soon to ossicles near you. Excelsior.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are in fact listening to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show live and direct here on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com and you can listen to me every Tuesday night, every Thursday night, 11 p.m. Eastern on the right coast, 8 p.m. Pacific on the left coast, and 17:39 and 117 seconds in Bolivia, Bolivian time. We are speaking to Mr. Dan Butcher of High Plains Media fame, and I'm also reading the article by Kurt Schlichter called Some Real Talk for Conservatives about 2018. And the article continues. We have to stop them. But stopping them, meaning Democrats, starts with us fixing with what we're doing wrong. We can only change ourselves. So we need to do that. Yeah, I know the Democrats are awful. Don't you read my sensational columns and follow my outstanding Twitter feed? But we're not talking about them now. Yeah, I know the liberal media is composed of lying creeps who serve as Chuck Schumer's steno pool when they aren't awkwardly harassing the interns since they aren't capable of winning themselves. Women like real men, but we're not talking about them right now. Yeah, I know the Trumpophobic true conservatives, and he's got a little trademark after that, are desperately trying to regain their power and prestige after we rejected them along with the rest of the Jeb-loving establishment Fredo-cons, or perhaps in Godfather speak it's Fredo-cons, who never managed to conserve anything except the cash that they raked in, falsely promising to fight. But we're not talking about them now. We're talking about us now. Let's talk about what we did wrong. Let's talk about what we need to change, because if we don't change, the swamp is going to swamp us. Our opponents are motivated. They are organizing. They are targeting the weakest Republicans, and in Virginia and Alabama, they snatched seats we should have kept or taken. Okay, so, pausing just momentarily. What is the biggest thing in your estimation, Dan Butcher of High Plains Media fame? What do you think is the biggest takeaway from what the Republicans have done wrong so far to date?
Well, here's the thing. They really, one of the biggest things that Democrats have been able to do is they are able to communicate much better to the people. They're able to get on the same page. They're able to communicate, whether it's false narrative or what have you. They tend to always have a better messaging platform to talk to people. They really know how to get to their base and get them fired up. On the flip side of that, Republicans have, number one, when the Republicans came back into power, we regained control of the House, we regained control of the Senate, and now we've regained control of the White House. The Republicans for so long had been the minority party. When they came back into full power, they did not know how to govern. And they still don't know how to govern. And
no,
you're
that's
seeing
true.
that with a lot of the stuff that's taken place in trying, whether it be with the failure to repeal and replace Obamacare, and some other different actions, some of the fiasco that's taking place right now with the tax reform bill. I'll tell you right now. I know you mentioned earlier, some of the, what you thought, what were some of the most underreported stories, during the year in the media, and I would say that has to be the actual accomplishments of Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump, just like Barack Obama, has had to do a lot of the stuff that he's wanted to do through, guess what, executive actions. That's one thing that hasn't changed in the White House, is the fact that the president has had to use executive actions to get a lot of his agenda in place and going. Now, here's the problem with that. Barack Obama was using executive actions because he didn't have the votes
yes.
in the House and the Senate. Even he kind of had the same problem for a little while that Trump has right now, is the fact that when the Democrats had the House and the Senate, they couldn't get back together because they hadn't governed for so long. But when they did learn to govern, the Republicans, they got Obamacare done. They got a lot of different things through the Obamacare. They got the Iranian nuclear deal done and all stuff like this. And so, but Barack Obama went above and beyond with a lot of the executive actions. Now, here it is with Donald Trump and what he's having to do with executive actions. He's having to fight against his own party in a lot of cases to get a lot of the stuff. Donald Trump has stayed true, whether you like him, love him, hate him, what have you. He has stayed true to himself. I will tell you now, Donald Trump ran as a Republican, but he's not really a Republican. He's not a Democrat. He's not a liberal. He's not a conservative.
No.
He's a centralist. He walks right down the line. He'll turn to the left a little bit. He'll turn to the right a little bit. But he stayed true to form. If you followed him politically and where his political stances are and whether he supported Republicans or Democrats over the years, he has stayed true to that going back 30, 40 years. He hasn't changed. He hasn't changed his stripes at all. And
Obama?
So he stayed true to that in the White House. And he's gotten a lot accomplished, but through executive actions. Can you imagine if the Republicans were not fighting amongst themselves, if they were not fighting, if they were not fighting against, here's the thing, not only are they fighting against each other, they're fighting against the President of the United States. You got the Senate doing one thing, you got the House doing another. You wonder and scratch your head, are conservatives welcome at all in the Republican Party? Are libertarians, folks like me, I refer to myself as a conservatarian.
Yep.
I'm a hybrid of being a conservative with some libertarian bents and a lot of stuff that go like you are. I think you and I are kind of the same mode.
I'm a little L libertarian, and the funny thing is, Obama and Trump are the exact opposite in this fashion. Obama was very popular. His policies were cat crap. Donald Trump is about as popular as a turd in someone's fishbowl. And
let me ask you this real quick.
His policies are good.
Ask you this Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, BZ. Why is Donald Trump so unpopular?
He's unpopular because he has not He's not pulled his weight. He's not paid his dues. He's not a politician, and he pushes back against, mostly these days, that which is politically incorrect. There are lots of things. I've gotten to the point now where I just have to. I can't really listen to much of what he says. I just wait to see what he does and what he's doing.
Have you ever?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. Here's the thing with Trump. Have you ever seen a president that, Ronald Reagan was beloved for everything that he did in office, okay? Trump is doing a lot of the same things. Look at what's happened, as far as domestic growth. All of a sudden, we've got domestic growth going from 1.5 up into the 3 to 4% range. You've got the stock market, that should have, if you follow traditional norms and you follow the traditional trends, should have dropped off at this point with the transition of a new president. But Mark Cuban swore
the stock market was going to drop. It was going to tank.
Yes.
It was going to fucking fracture. The first day that Donald Trump was in office. Wrong go.
There you go. So you have a president that is hated. His poll numbers have never changed. His poll numbers are sitting to 42 to 45%, which is where they were when he was running in the primaries. That's where they were when he was running for president. That's where they are now as president. You have a president that's hated by the left, hated by the Democrats, hated by members of his own party because he's doing exactly what he told the American people he was going to do. And guess what? The American people continue to stand behind the president that elected him to do what he said he was going to do, versus the typical political machines that wanted to continue things as business as usual in Washington, D.C. Donald Trump is going against that grain, and guess what? The damn Republicans cannot see that they are doing the exact opposite of what the people want them to do. And when it comes 2018, that is what is going to cost them I don't think it's going to cost them the House, but if anything costs them the United States Senate, it is not doing what the people elected them to do. And if you think that they're not going to remember that this group of Republicans did not repeal and replace Obamacare, they're sadly mistaken. That is why they better do something right. We just had a big military, the military appropriations bill that just passed. That was very underreported. We had been operating on a continuing resolution with the military for the last 8 years. This is the first true military budget in over 8 years, BZ. Very underreported. That was that was a big victory for the Republicans and Donald Trump to get that through. Very underreported. But if they do not, if they screw up this tax bill and something happens with this, I will tell you right now, if they screw this up tonight and tomorrow, they can kiss the Senate goodbye in 2018.
Well, let's continue with the Kurt Schlichter article because he was talking about a civil war, and he said, okay, we're talking about us now. Let's talk about what we did wrong. In Virginia, we had a huge bloody primary fight that left the winner weak going into the general. Ed Gillespie is an establishment meat puppet, but he would have been okay, and, quote, okay, is better than any commie Dem. We need to pick our fights. Here's a news flash. The most conservative candidate won't win every time. We need to figure out who is the most conservative candidate who can win and back him or her. That's the old Buckley rule. The purge of the squishes must come later. We need raw numbers, and if that means accepting the occasional Susan Collins, fine. She's the closest thing to a win in Maine, so accept that and move on. Brief comment on that. I did not see this coming from Kurt Schlichter. Brief comment on that, Dan.
Well, here's my thing. And this comes with, I still hear a lot. This is one mistake that I think conservatives have made, especially, and this is something we're seeing here in the state of Texas, is sometimes you're hearing the call, primary the candidate. Well, you know what? In some cases, you're better off right now to hold on to that seat, okay? put the best possible person in there that you can and hold on to that seat, okay? Run the best possible, the strongest candidates that we can find. BZ, let's face it, a Republican running for office here in the state of Texas is going to be a lot different than a Republican that is running in California or a Republican that's running in New York. Vast differences, different things. So you have to take what it is. We were pointing out all the Republicans that voted against the tax bill. New York, California, New Jersey. Yep. Those are a different brand of Republicans than what you see here, than what we have here in Texas. So you have to pick the candidates for that particular area, whether it is local, county, state, national, to represent those people, the best candidates. Okay. Now, sometimes they're going to have to. You're going to have to get behind them. Now, a lot of people were saying, the Republican Party had a big victory. Actually, had a big victory that Roy Moore was not elected. Roy Moore was a horrible candidate, but the Democrat in that race was even worse than Roy Moore was. So you were taking the lesser of two evils. But Roy Moore, in particular, as bad a candidate as he was probably the biggest asshole in the world you could possibly run for office at that point in time. But bottom line is, in the end, the voters of Alabama made the decision. But
it was theirs to make.
Probably would have been better off. The Republicans would have been better off holding on to that seat for looking at the overall picture nationally. So that instead of just having a 1-vote margin in the Senate now, they would still have a 2-vote margin. And what they could have done, as soon as Moore was seated and he won the election and was seated, they could have impeached him, removed him from office in the Senate, and then forced the governor of Alabama to appoint another Republican to occupy that seat for the rest of what would have been Jeff Sessions' term. Bottom line, that's what this was for, was to fulfill the rest of that term. So they didn't think long run. They were running and tucking, and even though the Republicans really had the moral ground as far as dealing with the sexual harassment and different things like that, they let the Democrats win that battle when the Democrats were actually more flawed in that, but the Republicans couldn't get together and stuff like that. So So you have to really stop and think. The Republican leadership. This comes back to the Republican leadership wholeheartedly. The different sides of whether it's going to be the Bannon group in the Republican Party, whether it's going to be the more conservative, the more centralist, the libertarians, whatever. The Republican leadership has to find a way to bring all of these different fractions of the Republican Party together. The Democrats are masters at bringing all the different parts of their party together. Whether it's minorities, whites, Latinos, whatever, they are masters at bringing all their party together. The Republicans are very flawed in that aspect, and that's what cost them a lot of elections, not being able to bring their different factions together in different parts of the country and what have you. And it cost them a lot of elections, starting locally, nationally, state, what have you. That's what the biggest thing, messaging, is when they lose. Because let's face it, BZ, we generally have on our side of the aisle the best solutions, the best ideas. We've made some mistakes too, but we generally have the best ideas, the best solutions. We are vastly in tune with what the people are actually wanting to accomplish, but the Democrats still have that one little ace in the hole, and they've come out and they play it, and it's, hey, you know what? We're going to buy votes. We're going to give you more money. Why do you think they're fighting against this tax bill so hard? Because they're scared of putting money back into the people's pockets, because the more money you put back in the people's pockets, the less control they have.
Well, Kurt Schlichter,
so that scares them to death.
Kurt Schlichter goes on by saying almost precisely that in the next paragraph. He says, in Virginia, the Democrats nearly took the legislature by identifying vulnerable seats, sneaking in with money, tech, and logistics, and pushing turnout of motivated pinkos. They caught us napping. That's their plan in 2018 also. but we know the score. We need to identify our vulnerabilities and start building our defenses. And we can also to identify their vulnerabilities so that we can snatch some Democrat seats in Trump country. That means we need to give money and time and do not do the grumbly, I've got the mads and the sads at how the GOP isn't perfectly conservative, so I'm staying home, darn it, and ensuring the Democrats win kind of thing. He says, we'll never get 100% of what we want, ever.
Right.
Deal with it. So, John McCain torpedoed the Obamacare repeal. I guess the rational response is to let the libs run rampant, right? He says, sheesh, stop being a pouty teen. Man up and get in the fight. He writes, I get mad too. I'm furious with the elderly mutant establishment turtle. But I like that. But I'm an adult, not a child, and sometimes I have to delay my unholy vengeance. We worry too much about purging our ranks and not enough about making sure we still have ranks to purge. An excellent
Bingo.
point. Oh, the accounting shall come. We will have our revenge. But today we need to keep control of Capitol Hill so Donald Trump can keep packing the courts, gutting the bureaucracy, and winning the war against jihadi dirtbags. We can wait to get even. Now he goes into the area that you were just talking about, Dan. Exhibit A is Roy Moore. Face it, we screwed that up bad. He was a terrible candidate, and terrible candidates lose. Let's concede he was treated unfairly by the lying media. Gloria Allred and her scuzzy minions lied about him. Team McConnell spent a ton of much-needed money trying to force a GOP stooge down Alabamians' throats so the tortoise wouldn't have to deal with the uppity Mo Brooks. Maybe there was some voter fraud. That's all irrelevant. Roy Moore was a terrible candidate from the beginning, and when it became clear he was wounded, we should have rebuffed his selfish determination to stay in the race. I don't care if he was innocent. That's not the point. I don't care about Roy Moore. He, like every politician, is expendable. God bless you, Kurt Schlichter, for writing that. He should have dropped out right away because he became a liability. When he wouldn't, we had to support him or write off a winnable seat, wasting money and credibility because Humility Boy decided Jesus was on his side. Narrator, but Jesus was not on his side. We owed Roy Moore nothing. He owed us loyalty, which he failed to show when he refused to drop out and make way for an undamaged candidate. His determination to make this race about clearing his name cost us a Senate seat. If he wanted to clear his name, there were courtrooms for that, as you pointed out, Dan. Instead, we got stuck with the guy we knew was a doofus even before he admitted he was a skeevy doofus. Weird candidates lose. The claims of illegality against him are shaky, but based on his own admissions, the best case was this guy scammed on high school girls in his 30s. Okay, legal or not, that's going to turn people off. And it did. Republicans' turnout tanked because when your argument is, well, my creeping on teens was technically legal, you're gonna lose votes. Dan, that's basically what you just said right there. And it's not just that he was a Class A strango. Let's not forget his awful campaign. While the Democrats were crunching numbers and working the data, Roy was disappearing for days at a time and then writing to the... I'm sorry. Okay, give me a second for this. Roy was disappearing for days at a time and then writing to the polls on Sassy the Wonder Horse. Perhaps more GOP voters would have turned out for someone who either checked out the local cheerleader action nor shopped at Elmer Gantry's big warehouse of redneck stereotypes. God dang. That's why I like Kurt Schlichter. God. Okay. All right. And he continues. We're reading an article. I'm reading an article by Kurt Schlichter, and it continues. Yeah? Roy Moore was still better than that baby-killing advocate Doug Jones. But Luther Strange would have won. Mo Brooks would have won. Sassy the Wonder Horse would have won. More lost. We need to stop nominating losers. Okay, now Dan Butcher, we got about 5 more minutes before the top of the hour break. We got to stop nominating losers. I'm going to throw something out here, and you tell me if I'm wrong. People are saying, oh, Trump killed this. Oh, the GOP killed this. The voters killed this. You know who killed it? I think it was Mitch McConnell who killed this. If he decided that he was going to throw a lot of weight, for example, behind Mo Brooks, who really was the more conservative candidate, and he wasn't a fucktard like Judge Roy, then maybe Mo would have gone places. And then Mo, now do the logical, what BZ calls the logical extension. Mo Brooks versus Doug Jones. I see that as the little things turning on the Las Vegas slots going ding, 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 ding. Winner. What do you think, Dan?
Well, here's the thing, and I'm gonna wrap this up real quick with Alabama. Regardless of who the Republicans threw out there, of course, you can say the Republican establishment was backing Luther Strange. The president was backing Luther Strange in that primary. But when it was all said and done, it was the voters of Alabama. It was the voters of Alabama that chose Roy Moore over Mo Brooks and over Luther Strange. End of discussion. It was the voters that made the decision. Okay, now, moving forward, the voters made the decision before all of the allegations started. Now, of course, that was the ace in the hole for the Democrats. They knew about all this. The Republican leadership nationally in Alabama, they should have researched Roy Moore's past a little bit more than what they did. The Democrats certainly did their homework. The Republicans did not. And so the voters, the Republican voters in Alabama, didn't have the information to work with that they did when you had the special election between Jones and Moore. And so when all of that information was out there, obviously Jones and with the Republicans stayed home in Alabama. That's how Jones was able to win.
Exactly.
The Republicans just flat out stayed home because they didn't want to have nothing to do with Moore. And when they found out what a douchebag he really was, they went, you know what? I'm just not going to vote at all. We're just going to stay at home. So the voters either decided to vote against him or they just stayed at home. This goes back to the primary to begin with, and the fact that the Republicans did not do the proper research, did not do the proper homework, vetting the candidates to begin with, to really look back into more, and the Democrats did. They were prepared, and they brought all of this out. They're the ones that seeded the story, fed the story to the Washington Post, and then don't blame the Washington Post. The Washington Post did a great job of reporting on this story. They went out, followed up the leads, and the reporter did all this. There was no fake news about this. There was no bullshit about this. The guy went out, did the legwork, did the interviews, and did all of this and brought the story out. That's what his job was to do. He was supposed to reported on it, and then, of course, that's where it goes from there. But it was the Republicans' fault, end of discussion, for not vetting more to start with.
Correct. I got about 1 more minute, then I'm going to have to wrap it up for the top of the hour break. But that's okay because Kurt only has a few more paragraphs to go. So I'm going to read this. We're going to take a break, come right back. Kurt wraps up by saying this: we have a lot of Senate races coming up. I like some of the more conservative folks, Dr. Kelly Ward in Arizona, Austin Peterson in Missouri. But here's the thing. If they, fairly or not, allow themselves to be marginalized, such as they are less likely to win the general than their GOP primary opponents, I'll toss them over. Nothing personal, just business. It's their job to win. And we don't owe any politicians loyalty to back them if they can't complete that basic task. This is a performance-based endeavor, and even though we like them, if they aren't the ones most likely to win, then they need to go. This is about winning, period. The lessons are clear. We need to understand that our enemy is serious, motivated, and intent on finding and exploiting the weaknesses in our candidates. We need to be ruthless in deciding who is most likely to win, even if it means backing someone who is 80% with us instead of 90%. It means being coldly rational instead of overheatedly emotional. We need to win the midterms next year. We need to get our heads right to do it. Yeah, our enemies are horrible, and politics is unfair. Well, boo-hoo. We can't change that. The only thing we can change is ourselves, and we need to, or we're going to get crushed. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a break. It's the top of the hour. It's 9 o'clock on the left coast. The witching hour, midnight on the east coast. It's 1775 and 110 seconds in Bolivia. Come right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show, also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can catch Reaver Common Sense Show hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on shrmedia.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else. So consider this your fair warning.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
Power brokers use corrupt politicians, deceptive Islam, and lies from establishment media to turn the once shining city on a hill into the city of the blind. What do the elites fear? One man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me at SHR Media, High Plains Talk Radio, Spreaker, iTunes, and YouTube for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because truth is not always pleasant.
Hello, I'm Tim Hart. I'm the guy BZ hires due to his shameless contract with the SHR Media Network to voice his promos. He'd like me to tell you that the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be found on SHR Media Network, Spreaker, and YouTube every Tuesday and Thursday night at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American media maggots won't. You'll find that the speech is free, but the drinks are not. There, in the saloon, just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, BZ is sending his personal drones of freedom into the wheelhouses and ossicles of lovers of sovereignty and liberty nationally and globally. Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, BZ swears that no rights were harmed in the making of this promo.
This is Jersey Joe, host of the Reaver Common Sense, and you're listening to SHRmedia.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are in fact listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct here on the SHR Media Network. I understand that there are some problems with the chat room, and that apparently, according to the way things are set up here, this is interesting, Dan. I didn't know if you were aware of this. Apparently, when you get to 10 people in chat, according to the way this is set up, it goes, oh, that's enough. Nobody can be around here. You can all go away. And apparently, once you max out people in chat, some other people are saying it also apparently won't let you listen to the show. I don't know if that's repairable or whether we have to upgrade something in terms of cache, but If it is repairable, it'd be great, and if we need to throw more cash on it, that would be a great thing to do, too. We can do that. That's no big deal. We'll pull out some cash. Because I had people switching back and forth in chat to try to figure out, we'll slip somebody else in, we'll pull somebody else out so we can get somebody into chat so that they can talk. That seems kind of weird. I don't know if you've heard of that before happening under this. But anyway, there it is.
Yeah, the chat should have a limit of 100 people in it. So that's just a thing. Probably. I need to get after Mr. Lewis. He's probably being cheap again and needs to renew it.
Well, I know this is a little bit of inside baseball, but do we need to throw some more money at the chat room to get an upgraded version of Spreaker? Is that the deal?
Oh, no. Spreaker should be fine. Spreaker's completely separate from the chat, so that has nothing. The Spreaker, the player on Spreaker, has absolutely nothing to do with the chat. When they come over to the Listen Live page on Facebook, on the SHRmedia.com website, they're going to be able to listen whether they can get into chat or not. They should still be able to listen on that page. What happened, just looking at it right now with the chat room, there's a basic free chat,
okay.
And that's the one that has a limit of 10 people that can be in chat at one time with chat row. And so that's just a thing. Probably what's happened is it needs to be renewed and so that it has that other limit on it. So that's the bottom line. It's just a matter of just renewing it.
Okay, so it's just like you said. Then it's a matter of Sean Lewis being cheap ass. All right, sorry, folks.
Hey, you know what? After the shots that Mr. Lewis took at me on Sackheads on Wednesday,
that's only fair. That's just damn fair. Okay. Now it's inside baseball, I know, but it'd be nice to have more people be able to come.
No, here's the thing about Sean and I. Sean and I love each other like brothers. We have struck up a very close friendship. Besides our working relationship, he and I have become very, very close friends. Literally like brothers. We could almost tell what each other's thinking, when we're doing different things. And so he and I, we love to bust each other's chops. It's kind of because it kind of started, a long time ago. Sean started his own solo show, and I hosted it for him a couple of days a week. So that was kind of a little joint venture for us, and so we kind of had this fun thing where we started texting back and forth and sitting stuff just to screw each other's up. And you sit across from Sean. And folks, you have to watch the video because it's absolutely priceless. You can always tell when I send something to Sean. The look on his face is absolutely priceless. And BZ is sitting right directly across from him in the studio.
Yeah,
and whenever I get him, you can always tell because he completely loses it. And that's the goal.
I gotta read this to you, Dan. There's one of the tribbles from the Hugh Hewitt radio show. A lot of folks came over here today, and
yes.
Thanks for the folks that are listening on and watching on Facebook right now. They left this chat to go into the Facebook chat for watching the show, and I appreciate that. So thank you. Good to see you folks. Always come right back. Traveling Cynic wrote that, hey, is Sean so tight that you cannot pull a needle out of his ass with a tractor? And I got to tell you, that's some funny shite right there. That is some funny shite. I like that a lot. I'm going to have to remember that. I don't have a memory, but if I find one somewhere, I'm going to have to remember that. That was good.
That's great.
So I have to ask you, and when we got into a little bit of it, and I'm going to try to have as many people on. I've got, 1, 2, 3 shows remaining left for this year, because I'm on folks that are just watching, just tuning in. I'm on every Tuesday and Thursday night, twice a week, on the SHR Media Network, shrmedia.com. And then also I'm live on Facebook, and I'm live on YouTube on the SHR YouTube channel. So I start at 8 p.m. Pacific or 11 p.m. Eastern. And what I'm going to try to do with the remaining 3 shows that I've got until the end of the year is talk to as many people as I can about just this topic. What do you think were the most important, the most relevant, and perhaps the most irrelevant stories and incidents of 2017? I know what I'm thinking, but Dan, any first kind of thoughts come to your wheelhouse about that and 2017?
I am actually working on 2 or 3 articles that's going to address some of this. So I'm not going to spoil too much because I've got my own articles that I'm working on. But you know, there's so many, and there's so many stories that have been ignored by
yes.
a lot of the. I always tell everybody there's no such thing as mainstream media anymore. You have different types of media, whether it be conservative media, whether it be liberal media, whether it be the legacy media. But media has evolved. I always tell people there's no such thing as newspapers anymore because newspaper companies have evolved into be multifaceted. The print product's a small portion of what they do with their internet and different other various print products they have, the internet. A lot of them have radio stations, TV, stuff like that
right.
now. So, it's media companies have changed so much. But the one thing, and I alluded to this earlier, is that one of the most underreported things has been and the reason being is you've seen a lot of, you and I have talked about how I detest the term fake news. I think we definitely do have misinformation taking place, but I call it agenda news. And what we have seen is, a lot of whether media outlets, CNN does not hide the fact of what they're trying to do with their agenda now, and what they're doing and with how they're reporting on
so
Donald
obvious.
Trump. Yeah, what's funny is the New York Times, the Washington Post have kind of backed off a lot. Once they finally got to the bottom of the reporting and realized, hey, there's not really any Russian collusion taking place, involving Trump directly, you've seen them back off a lot. CNN looks at, let's face it, when we had the terror attack in New York City last week, CNN is busting in talking about how many damn Diet Cokes and Big Macs. But Donald Trump eats every day and drinks every day.
Good
what a bunch
God.
of bullshit. But so I think one of the most underreported stories is actually how much Donald Trump has accomplished. You're not seeing that. You don't see the accomplishments reported. You see the other stuff that's taking place, which it should be. He's still got a little, Trump, let's face it, still has some stuff hanging over his head as far as the sexual harassment. He's got some sexual harassment lawsuits against him, stuff like that. We have to report on that stuff. But on the same token, that's not everything. They have accomplished so much, especially, I think the most underreported story that's definitely affected the nation as a whole is the continuing effect that Donald Trump has on the courts and the appointments that he's making to the courts right now and how he is being able to shift the balance of a lot of these courts. Yeah, I don't say taking them to being more conservative. I say taking them to being more common sense. That's the key thing, restoring common sense on the courts. So that's one of the most underreported stories that you're not hearing anything about is how he's drastically changing and restoring common sense and balance to the courts across the country. And I think he's going to have at least one more opportunity on the Supreme Court to really restore some common sense to the Supreme Court. And with any luck, there's a lot of talk of splitting up the Ninth Circuit, which
the new justice off of the Ninth, he's going to have his butt handed to him because of sexual harassment issues.
Exactly. And so you're going to have some issues dealing with it. They've got to address the Ninth Circuit because you're talking about a court that has 90% of its rulings overturned.
Yes.
Think about that. 90% of the rulings that come out of the Ninth Circuit are overturned by another court. That's ridiculous. So they have to address that, because there's definitely a lot of people trying to legislate from the bench on the Ninth Circuit. So they're going to do that. So that one right there, and the one of anything with the Obama administration, with his legacy, when it's all said and done, it's going. His legacy, whether he's one term or two, is how he has drastically restored the courts to some sense of common sense. That's very, very important. And there's so many other things we can talk about, this, and this, and this. But it's going to be interesting to see. And I think too is how what's the best way I want to put this? Is I think another thing that is really underreported is the damage that you did not hear coming after. You generally have a lot of reporting after an administration leaves, particularly the Obama administration. You didn't have a lot of stuff said about the damage that the Obama administration did. This is all Donald Trump has done during his first year in office, is start repairing the damage caused by Barack Obama. And he has repaired so much of it. A lot of the damage he did in 8 years, Trump has been able to repair in his first year in office. Of course, Obamacare is a whole other issue. They're going to have to tackle it. But the damage that was done to this country by Obama, you hear nothing about that. And it's something that's fixing to take off. You and I, and we've talked about this before, Hillary Clinton. And, right now, I've got if you go to shrmedia.com, we aggregate. I post a lot of original articles up there, a lot of original news stories, but we do a lot of aggregating too. But there's a story up there that we're aggregating from Fox News that has to do with, did Hillary have a slush fund? And, it's long been speculated that Hillary Clinton and her campaign took complete control of the Democratic Party during the primary and during the 2016 presidential election. They were controlling everything with the party. And all of that money was being funneled, everything locally, state, everything. Every bit of money that came into the DNC was being filtered not to support congressional candidates, not to support Senate candidates, but to support Hillary Clinton's campaign. Now the big question is, where did all of Hillary's campaign money really go? How much of that money made it into the hands of Bill and Hillary themselves, into the Clinton Foundation? How much money did Chelsea get? And so you're seeing a lot of things starting to come out. People say, well, Dan, why do you keep reporting on the email scandal dealing with Hillary Clinton? Why do you keep poking away at the Clinton Foundation? Why do you keep reporting on Hillary? This is why. Because I think you're fixing to find out that the Clintons took in a lot of donor money and used it for their own personal use. And if that is the case, and some of this stuff that's starting to come through, you're certainly going. You look. At one time there was only a dream that you might see Hillary or Bill in jail. Now you can see Hillary, Bill, and Chelsea in jail. Wouldn't that be what a monumental good thing to see?
Here's what I think is going to be the biggest takeaway from 2017.
I want a Democratic activist, rank and file Democrats. Those are the people.
Hang on one second. My audio cut jumped off. Here's what I think is going to be the biggest thing of 2017, and it started on November 9th of 2016, and that's this. The Democrats are going to rue the fucking day that they decided to go with the Trump-Russia collusion election hacking meme. Because just as you alluded to, what we're discovering en route is this, the tip of the Obama iceberg. All the things that are just now starting to come out were things that were factually occurring under the Obama regime, and having decided that they were going to all go there, that is to say the Democrats, the leftists, the progressives, the American media maggots, they decided back in 2016 that they were going to open the door that they continued to walk through in 2017, and that's this. The real collusion, the real corruption, the real badness is not on part of the GOP, not on behalf of the GOP. It's on behalf of the Democrats. And here's the other thing. We all know that if Mueller had something concrete on Donald Trump, he would have hid it. He would have hung it like a dead cat around Donald Trump's neck, because Donald Trump already has a dead orange cat on the top of his head. Now, here's the article that you were alluding to. This just came out of Fox News. Hillary Clinton campaign, DNC, accused of corrupt money scheme in new FEC complaint. That's the Federal Election Commission. A new legal complaint filed with the Federal Election Commission alleges that the Hillary Clinton campaign and the Democrat National Committee used state chapters as straw men to circumvent campaign donation limits and laundered the money back to her campaign. Would you have ever fucking found that out if there were Hillary Rodham Clinton sitting in the Oval Office today? And of course the answer is not just a resounding hell no, but fuck hell no. That would not have happened. So the tip of the Obama iceberg, there's so much more that's going to be revealed. And again, I say the Democrats are going to be so damn sorry they ever walked through that door. And I refer to it as Schadenfreude. Schadenfreude is this. It's a German term. It means that I'm sitting on the banks as BZ, and I'm watching the dead bodies of all my enemies float languidly by on the river, and I'm noting to myself, they're dead, and I'm still here. I want to point out something else that you brought up. Congress has handed Trump an absolutely historic presidential victory. The Senate Judiciary Chairman, Chuck Grassley, he is giving President Trump yet another major victory on judicial nominations, and a lot of that happened right around Thanksgiving. None of that would have happened if it weren't for beautiful Harry Reid's decision to kill the filibuster. It's because of the Democrats. The result is Trump is going to get to fill the most federal judiciary vacancies in, are you sitting down, Dan? 40 years. Thank you very much. And what he needs to do is he needs to give really special thanks to two U.S. senators. One is still serving in the Senate. The other recently retired. One's a Republican. The other one's a Democrat. And why should Trump be thanking them? Quite simply, they handed him one of the biggest victories any president could claim, basically in the past 40 years. And Senator Chuck Grassley from Iowa, the longtime member of Congress, has big-time clout as chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Grassley just used that clout to eliminate one of the final hurdles in the already furious pace of Trump administration judicial appointees to the federal bench. Thank you, Dan Butcher, for pointing that out. Neil Gorsuch, federal bench appointees. Yes, exactly. Another extremely important point. Now I got to ask you again, Dan Butcher. I think that Donald Trump is going to get at least one more SCOTUS vacancy. I submit he may even get two more SCOTUS vacancies before the end of a term, before the end of a first term. If he is a two-term president, he will have the opportunity, and I believe firmly it will be presented to him, to replace two more jurists on the Supreme Court. What do you think?
It depends on what's going to happen, and obviously, the probably the next one that be replaced is I don't know, because everybody looks at the most obvious one would probably be Ruth Bader Ginsburg, but
right.
Somehow I pointed out to you on your show one time before that she has the best medical care in the country of anybody. 24/7, everybody around her. That's the last person the Democrats want to ever see pass away in this country right now. But if he does, I think it's going to be Ginsburg would be one, and Kennedy would probably be the other. If anything coming up, I think those are the two that are probably going to leave the court next. But Democrats, especially the liberal judges, tend to be real stubborn about giving up their seats on the court when there's a Republican president. So it's going to be interesting. I'm with you. I think he's going to at least get one more, maybe two. But even as far as I keep coming back to this, even as important as the appointments are on the Supreme Court, I think the appointments on the lower courts are even more important, because you're going to if you have common sense restored to the lower courts, then you head off a lot of this nonsense, even going to the Supreme Court.
Yep. Then you don't have crap like the
in
fourth.
The lower courts.
You don't have crap like that came out of the 4th and the 9th. What came out of Hawaii and Washington, and then all the rest of this bullshit would not have had to go to SCOTUS, and then SCOTUS went back. And do you see what they did? SCOTUS went, you courts are really stupid. And when you have a 7-2 vote on the Supreme Court about Trump's travel ban, you've got a serious problem on the left coast. The corollary to that is, I really don't think they give a fuck.
Yeah, they don't. And I think, even you do have of all of the liberal judges, Kagan seems to be the one that's the least liberal of all of them. Sotomayor, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, they are what they are.
Yeah, they voted against the Trump travel ban.
Yes.
Everyone else voted to let it go, including, just like you said, Kagan. Didn't see that coming, but it's true. They all lined up, the 7. Those were the other 2.
And, once again, it comes back to, okay, so what are you going to do? And, this comes back to, we're talking about the article that we spent most of the show discussing right now, is how important these elections in 2018 really are. The Republicans, here's the thing, all of the seats that the Republicans have up should be fairly easy to win or defend. But but they're shooting themselves in their own ass in a lot of cases and pissing off the people. There's a lot of Democrat seats that are up for grabs that the Republicans should be able to take to cushion their majority in the Senate. There's no reason why the Republicans coming out of 2018 could not go to 54, 55, 56 seats. There's no reason in the world they should not be able to do that, especially with Trump as president. Once again, people are going to say, well, Trump's going to be a negative effect on this and this and this. That's not true. The reason being is his poll numbers have held steady from the day he announced he was running for president to the day he was elected to, guess what, to today. They've stayed the same. Trump is not having any effect on a lot of this at all. It's the Republican leadership, whether it's on the local level, state level, national level, that are, they're not being able to get their message right. They're not being able to be on the same page. And as we pointed out with Roy Moore, they're not vetting the candidates properly, blah, 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 blah. We can do this. But, bottom line is the Democrats could do a lot to stifle the Republicans just by staying on their playbook and letting the Republicans kill themselves.
Here's what I call the Helms axiom. Back in the let's just say a long time ago, when I was in high school, my civics teacher and social studies teacher, Mr. Helms, said this. I never forgot it ever. He said, Democrats don't win elections, Republicans lose them. Bingo. Yes. And that was true even way back then. Now, some of the folks in chat are making some very interesting comments. Traveling Cynic said, Thomas, Ginsburg, Breyer, and Kennedy are all over 80. And also, White Mamba said, those lower court Article 3 federal judgeships are lifetime appointments. Very important indeed, Dan. And then Traveling Cynic said, yes, and only about 10% of the cases get to SCOTUS, so appellate courts are the most important. Thank you ever so much. So we're winning in SCOTUS. We're winning in these federal courts. And, folks, we got to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about even more winning. So thank you for listening tonight to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Thanks for listening live. Thanks for being involved in chat. Thanks for listening and watching on Facebook and also on the YouTube videos that are going right now. Come right back. Last segment is up.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American maggots won't. BZ is fundamentally changing America one diaper at a time. Just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, where the speech is free, but the drinks are not. The Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night, commencing at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, where pushback is a requisite art form in and of itself. Let your ossicles be truly liberated when you listen to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, only on SHR Media Network. No ferrets were harmed in the making of this ad.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through SHRmedia.com, HighPlainsTalkRadio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on BlogTalkRadio.com. There's
no surrender ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
This is Sam on SHR Media. You can listen to my new show starting on Tuesdays in January. Get my perspective on national politics, a conservative's perspective on California politics, the latest in the war on terror, all of that and a lot more here on Tuesdays at SHR Media. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Sam_SHR Media.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m., Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can catch Reaver Common Sense Show hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on SHRmedia.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else. So consider this your fair warning.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians, a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless, hope to the hopeless, clues to the clueless. Sackheads Sean, Sackheads Clint, and Sackheads BZ. The Sackheads Radio Show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern on SHRmedia.com. Watch on YouTube, Facebook, and the High Plains Pundit Network. The best in late-night conservative talk, the Sackheads Radio Show, only on the SHR Media Network.
Go ahead, I'll say it.
Some of the best A-roll is going to be B-roll.
Like, what are you talking about? Just the last question that you cut a couple seconds. Yeah, I'm a freaking artist. I can't just come up with this shit off the top of my head. Are you freaking kidding me right now?
Good point. Exactly right.
Hey, this is Sackhead Clint, and I'm with Sackhead Sean, Sackhead BZ. No communists allowed on the SHR Media Network.
Damn straight, mister.
Back to the show.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are in fact listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct here on the SHR Media Network. We have been speaking all night with the Mega One, the media magnate himself, Dan Butcher of High Plains Media fame, based out of Texas, the Republic of Texas. Here's a funny thing. California calls itself a republic. No, I guess it could be the People's Socialist Republic, but Texas is an actual republic. Yeah. So what were some of the other stories, Dan Butcher, that you think were important? Now, you mentioned some ones that were ignored, like the judgeships. Were there any other things that you thought were ignored, placed onto ignore mode by the American media maggots, or some of the ones that, I don't know, maybe should have been emphasized a little bit more, but nobody really knew about?
Yeah. Oh, BZ, the list is too long.
It's like, where do you start? Go ahead.
Here is the thing with the media is the fact that I think one of the big stories, and they're not going to report on this themselves, is the fact of just some of the pure hatred that you saw. Now, granted, those of us here in conservative media, we did our fair share of going after Barack Obama, but with reason. We had a lot of facts, a lot of stories to follow up, and continue to do so, even in going with Hillary Clinton. There's a lot of stuff there to continue digging into and going after. But with Donald Trump, it's a little bit different. There's a little bit different tone in the reporting. And it almost goes back to the way the liberal media reacted towards George W. Bush, the hatred that the media had towards George W. Bush.
Oh, he was called the smirking chimp. Yeah.
Exactly. And now you see it even more so with Donald Trump. Because stop and think about it. Before Donald Trump was elected president, he was a media darling. They loved him.
Well, and the Democrats loved him, too, and the Republicans loved him, too. Lots of people contributed to Donald Trump, and now not so much, to the point where they want to impeach him. Everyone, of course, conveniently forgetting that Eric Holder was held in contempt of Congress under the Obama administration, and forgetting quite conveniently that President Willie Bill Clinton was actually impeached during his term. I call that historical Alzheimer's. Just that's not important anymore. Yes, it is.
But, going back to, if you want to look, and I'm going to look at, and not so much as stories, but actions. But one thing that's not being reported on, and I'm going to point out Nikki Haley on the UN. Of all of the appointments and members of Donald Trump's administration, Nikki Haley stands out. The work that she is doing at the United Nations right now is absolutely phenomenal.
Oh, hell
she
yeah.
is kicking ass and taking names. But here's the thing. Nikki Haley with Donald Trump has restored the United States of America to a leadership role on the world stage, where Barack Obama and the Obama administration withdrew us from the world stage. They, like it or not, whether you like it or not, this is a role that the United States has embraced, that we are the leaders of the free world, that we are going to promote freedom, prosperity, life, liberty, and happiness around the world. We're going to protect our national interest. We're going to protect our allies. We're going to back them up. That's not what you saw with Barack Obama. We withdrew from the world stage. We weakened our military. We hamstrung our military. The rules of engagement were changed, where they had to have permission to defend themselves. Now our troops can defend themselves again, but we have restored that order. Not only are we the world leader, have we restored our leadership in protecting peace around the world, okay? We have also restored, or in the process thereof, of restoring ourselves as the economic leaders of the world as well. The way, however the United States goes, is the way the world goes. And so Donald Trump is doing a great job of promoting that. People criticize him, say, he's got this America first thing. He wants to only concentrate on America. No, you have to understand what he means by that. He wants what's best for America, and that includes protecting our interests, promoting freedom around the world, protecting our allies, but holding our allies accountable to make sure that they're also got our back. Very important thing there. Make sure our allies are actually our allies. Make sure they're actually our friends and have our back. Because, if we're going to have their back, they better have ours as well.
Here's something.
Donald Trump's holding them to that. So we're restored as the world leader. And he's undone 8 years of terrible foreign policy by the Obama administration, and slowly but surely restoring some, once again, I come back to these two worlds, common sense. This is all this is. It's common sense.
Yes.
And I'm going to point out Nikki Haley because...
Okay, can you stop right there just for a second? You mentioned Nikki Haley, and I want everyone and yourself to hear this. Now, I don't know if technologically you're going to be able to hear this, but I know the people will hear. Here's what Nikki Haley happened to say in the UN the other day when the entire UN Security Council decided that they're going to vote against Trump's Jerusalem declaration. Listen to what they said and then listen to her response.
With those in favor of the draft resolution contained in document S/2017/1060, please raise their hand.
Every member raises their hand except...
Thank you.
For one.
Those against?
One.
Thank you.
Now listen.
No abstentions. The result of the voting is as follows. 14 votes in favor, 1 vote against. The draft resolution has not been adopted owing to the negative vote of a permanent member of the Council.
That resolution would have voided Trump's resolution, and 14 Security Council members voted in favor. Only America
what we witnessed here today
voted against
in the Security
it.
Council is an insult. It won't be forgotten. It's one more example of the United Nations doing more harm than good in addressing the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Today, for the simple act of deciding where to put our embassy, the United States was forced to defend its sovereignty. The record will reflect that we did so proudly. The United States will not be told by any country where we can put our embassy.
The United States will not be told where we can put our damned embassy. Thank you. Do you think, sir, that would ever have happened under a Barack Hussein Obama administration?
No. Bottom line
was
is
incredible. That's what should have been said.
Exactly. And I'm so glad you had that clip because I was actually fixing to read that. And I'm so glad you had that because it's so much powerful when you hear it and see what's happening with that. Of all, and I want to point out of all the appointments that Trump's made some mistakes.
Oh yeah.
But they have corrected that, and I think they've got some good people in different positions. But from the get-go, sending Nikki Haley. I always thought Nikki Haley, and I think Nikki Haley will be a presidential candidate someday. Maybe sooner than later, but I think she will be, and I think she will win. And this is certainly her opportunity on the world stage to show what she can do. And she is not disappointing. She is one tough cookie, and I think she has surprised a lot of people, especially a lot of the people at the UN, and how tough she really is. And I think she really stands out in the Obama in the Trump administration in trying. Once again, it comes back to fixing all of the just horrible foreign policy decisions by the Obama administration.
There are good and bad points of what has happened recently. That 2-3 presidencies have decided that they're going to essentially rule on EOs. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Trump can come in and he can sit down, as he did at the first day, at a table and sign a bunch of EOs rescinding previous EOs. The corollary to that is that the next administration, and obviously there will always be a next administration, can do the same damn thing to his EOs, which is why it's always better to push this stuff through Congress. Obama couldn't do it, so he came out with an arseload of EOs that were not sort of suggestions. They contained the word shall and must. That goes beyond an EO, essentially. That goes into legislating. That goes into law. Those things are really, really kind of tenuous. I know you have to pull out EOs when you must. I still think it's best to send things up to Congress. Another question that has to be asked, and it was similar to the one that I posed earlier about a potential civil war. Never in I've been on this planet for 7 decades. Never in that amount of time have I ever seen a Congress at such polar philosophical opposites ever. And the left seems to be going more left and doubling down on being stupid. Can we? Is it possible, Dan Butcher? Is it possible to try to pull things back together? Can we do it?
Sure. And here's why. You have to remember, we've seen this before. And you saw this with what happened with this actually started, although we technically had a couple of Republican presidents in between there, but you saw this start with LBJ and start with the massive welfare programs and different things like that started under
Society.
LBJ.
Yeah,
exactly. And then actually, really, a lot of that. There wasn't much difference between Nixon and LBJ. A lot of those same policies continued with Richard Nixon until he resigned from office. A lot of that same policy continued under Gerald Ford. That, of course, led to the citizens of the United States really didn't think they were getting much difference in a president between Ford and Carter. And then, of course, the collapse came with all of these programs. The wake-up call came under Jimmy Carter. And, of course, then you had the rise of Ronald Reagan. And Ronald Reagan came into office. You know, we always talk about presidents being a president at the right time and place. Ronald Reagan had to come along and restore order and sanity to the United States of America, make it a prosperous country again, make it a world leader again. And so now people will say, here's the thing, under Bill Clinton, you didn't see a lot of stuff change under Bill Clinton because Bill Clinton had to deal with a very tough Republican Congress and a really tough Republican Senate, and so he had to move to the center in order to be effective as president, to have any type of legacy, because they weren't going to let him get away.
Thanks,
The
Newt.
Republicans at that point in time actually listened to the people. But then, of course, you go through, you come to George W. Bush. George W. Bush, president, right time and place to deal with 9/11, but he was by far the biggest big government president that we have seen in a long time.
Oh,
folks, if you don't know,
yes.
George W. Bush left Texas a mess. He left Texas a disaster economically.
Thank you.
Rick Perry does not
you.
get the credit he deserves in dealing with all that. And now you're looking at Donald Trump after 8 years of George W. Bush, and 16 years, if you want to really look at it, of big government and progressive politics with Bush and Barack Obama. Look at what Trump has done in the last year and what he's having to do. Now, Trump is by far no Ronald Reagan. But he has the opportunity, if the Republicans can get together, get on the same page, work with the president. It's not that hard, folks. Work with the president, work together, get this stuff done that can restore sanity. And the American people have always been smart. When progressivism gets a little too much, the American people have rose up and smacked it down, and they've said that again, and they've told the Republicans to do that. If the Republicans don't do that, they're going to be run out of office.
We talked about 2018, and you're absolutely correct. And people have said, in order to be a Ronald Reagan, there had to be a Jimmy Carter. In order to, well, for God's sakes, that's translatable to last year. In order to be a Donald Trump, the guy with the dead orange cat on the top of his head, there had to be a Barack Hussein Obama. There had to be that. Now, there's going to be the counterpoint to Donald Trump, whether it's in 2020 or 2024. Of course, that's a given. Now, we got about 8 more minutes before the end of the show, and if we could, I'd like to migrate over to this. There are some points, and people are making a big deal out of the GOP tax cuts. And a lot of folks are saying, I don't like the tax cuts. And other folks are saying, well, I love the tax cuts. But people primarily aren't saying what are in the tax cuts. Well, you happen to have an article about that today. And also there are some bullet points that I saw on the Republican tax reform bill. Mm-hmm. And what I know so far is the corporate tax rate was cut from 35% to 21%. These are the proposals. 7 individual tax brackets from 10% to 37%. So, folks, those of you in the 10 percentile bracket, you're not going to get kicked up to 12 or 15. Child tax credits double to $2,000 a year. That was Rubio. Standard deduction nearly doubles to $12,000 for individuals and $24,000 for married couples. And deduction of up to $10,000 of property or state and local taxes. You had a very interesting article in High Plains Media today about that as well. And let's see, I think I'm looking at your article right now, and that was in yours, and it points out this. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act overhauls America's tax code to deliver historic tax relief for workers. With this bill, the typical family of 4 earning the median family income of $73,000 will receive a tax cut of $2,059. There's a whole bunch of other stuff. But what I found interesting was Nancy Pelosi or some other fucktard like her said, in terms of California now, specifically in terms of California, well, this is going to hurt all the people that are making, $175 to $200 to $250,000 that are living in Santa Cruz, and they're living in Marin County in San Francisco. Marin County, San Francisco, Santa Clara County, that's Silicon Valley, where the most expensive real estate on the planet is. And she's bitching that it's going to hurt these people that are making an arseload of money. Dan, are you making an arseload of money?
Yeah, I have 5 kids. What do you think? Now, here's the thing.
That's how they quantify it. Jesus.
Yeah, now here's my thing on the tax act. I'm going to make this quick because I could talk about this is a whole other show or two. But I'm a consumption tax guy. I'd like to see the IRS and the current income tax replaced with a consumption tax.
Okay.
Bottom line, that's eventually what I'd like to see. Now, are we ever going to see that? Probably not. So the best thing we can hope for is lowering taxes. There's 2 things that stand out. Number one, there's going to be every American, especially lower income and middle class Americans, are going to have more money in their pockets, okay? That's not a handout, ladies and gentlemen. That's a hand up. That is more money that you have in your pocket to spend on things to, guess what, spur the economy. The economy is consumer-driven, and when people are spending money, the economy's doing great. Businesses are hiring because there's the needs there, okay? That's number one. More money in the hands of the American people is a good thing. Now, the one thing that a lot of people are still not talking about, and that is the fact that the corporate tax rate is going to come down. Is going to come down from 35% to 21%. Now, I personally wanted to see that go down to 15%, but we had to have a happy medium. So 21% is a good start. What is going to happen with that is, and this is the big thing that's not being talked about, is that will free up a lot of money that these big corporations and a lot of companies keep overseas, offshore, that they will now be able to reinvest back into the U.S. economy. Once again, if they got to pay less taxes on it, they're going to invest it wherever they can, where they're going to make more money. So that's going to open up the opportunity for corporate investments, more money being invested into the U.S. economy. And guess what, folks? That's going to drive that gross domestic product, from the 2.5 and 3 point range. That will drive it up to will drive it up into the 4 to 5 point range. And all of a sudden, that makes China start scratching their heads, going, "What in the hell's going on here?" And what that means is a longevity of economic prosperity. When you have that investments and you have that steady stream with the lower taxes, like you saw with the Reagan tax cuts, that was something that lasted from the 1980s up until, guess when? George W. Bush took office. Think about that. Ronald Reagan from 1980, that prosperity, which actually began in 86, 84 to 86 is when it really took off, lasted all the way to 2000, 2001. And really, that is what carried us through when the economy collapsed because of 9/11 and various other big government things that the George W. Bush's administration was trying to do. And so now you're seeing the same thing. Lower taxes will spur economic growth, not for the short term, but for the long term. Not just for 2 to 3, 4 years, but for the next decade, maybe the next 2 decades.
Here's something that just came in, and I'm going to have to interrupt Dan, number one, because it's time to go, and number two, Traveling Cynic just rose in here. It just passed the Senate tonight, 51 to 48. So it's official, 51 to 48. Folks, what a great show. And I should remind everyone, little plug, if you're interested in politics and the paranormal, Thursday is going to be a weird-ass show for me. There was an individual in the chat room at the beginning of the show called Alan Thomas. Alan Thomas is a Sasquatch hunter, and he happens to know all sorts of things about the paranormal, about UFOs, Sasquatch, etc., because he just was late with Paranormal Central. I'm going to have him on to talk about politics and the paranormal. That's coming on Thursday. So, folks, you want to make sure that you're there for that. My thanks tonight to Dan Butcher, he of High Plains Media. Dan, as per normal, it was great to hear you here tonight. And finally, tell folks where you can be read.
Hey, buddy, it's always a pleasure. You know what, BZ, this is my favorite type of radio, and this is what I call coffee shop radio. This is what people should be doing, sitting down and discussing. And whether you're a Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative, this is how you get things done. You sit down, you discuss, whether you agree, disagree, what have you. This is coffee shop politics, coffee shop talk, coffee shop radio. This is always a pleasure. It's always a blast, my friend. You can get me at highplainspundit.com.
Great. Dan, thank you for being here. And, folks, remember, every Tuesday night, every Thursday night, you can come back here in the saloon, shrmedia.com, on the SHR Media Network. I'm here at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern, and also at 1975 and 210 seconds in Bolivia.
Monsieur has been locked!
We'll meet again. Don't know where. Don't know where. But I know. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon right here, live and direct on the SHR Media Network. You want to contact me? You can find me on Twitter at BZEP, on my blog at bloviatingzeppelin.net. You can chat me an email, bz@shrmedia.com. Promotional consideration is by Lockheed Martin, Skunk Works, and the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. And also, Pratt & Whitney Engines, thrust you can trust. Thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle 1 refueling team with whom I will be consorting in less than an hour. You can take that crap to the bank. And thank you for ever so kindly for listening live tonight. Thank you for being in chat. Thanks to Dan Butcher. Thanks to all the tribbles who transmogrified over in here. And damn it, you are welcome here every Tuesday and Thursday night. Love to see you. God bless. Take care. You be safe.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children. Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night,
Jim Bob.
Good night, and good luck.